Most retirees are living inside the wrong retirement plan. And by wrong, I don't mean broken. I mean a plan that was built for someone else, not the way they actually think and live. They ran the Monte Carlo, they set a safe withdrawal rate, they even added guardrails, but none of it gave them the one thing they really wanted: peace of mind. And until they understand why that happens, retirement would always feel fragile, no matter how strong the plan looks on paper. After working with hundreds of retirees over the years, I've seen this pattern again and again. People who did everything right financially and still worry about spending. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to explain what's really behind those reactions and to introduce the framework and the tool that changes how retirees build a plan that finally quiets the worry about spending. And before we wrap up, I'll share a link to the same tool I use with my clients to look at this clearly. So let's dive in. Let me show you what I mean with two real people, two very different reactions, almost at the same moment in time. Janet is in her early 60s. She has over $1.5 million saved. Her Social Security and investment income cover the majority of her expenses. She's careful with money. She doesn't overspend. She's done everything right. And earlier this year, when the markets dipped, Janet called me out of the blue. She didn't call to fine-tune her plan. She called because she wanted to leave her advisor. She said to me, "I can't watch my money go down anymore. I think I need to put it somewhere guarantees, something like annuities." Nothing had changed about her income or her lifestyle. Nothing had changed about what she really needed. But watching that account balance drop made everything suddenly feel unsafe, even though on paper she was still completely fine. Now let me tell you about Tom, who's actually one of my clients. Tom is also in his 60s, and he's also financially independent. He doesn't need to take more risks to be okay. But when the market started going up, Tom's instinct went in the opposite direction. Instead of feeling cautious, he felt energized. He came to me and said, "Maybe we should move more of my money into stocks while things are running." He wanted to reduce the safer part of his portfolio and push harder for growth, even though a big downturn would hit his plan much harder, even though he really had enough to live on in retirement. Same stage of life, strong finances, completely different reactions. And none of it came from spreadsheets, probabilities, or withdrawal rates. It came from how each of them experiences money when conditions change. Something most retirees' plans never look at all. For a long time, I kept seeing different versions of Janet and Tom. People with plans, enough money to spend, smart decisions behind them. And yet, their reactions to the same market moves couldn't have been more different. And I finally had to ask myself, what if the problem isn't the strategy at all, but that we're building the strategy without understanding the person first? And that's when I started using something called the RISA assessment, short for Retirement Income Style Awareness, based on decades of retirement income research by Dr. Wade Pfau. And what it does is surprisingly simple. It shows how a person naturally thinks about safety, growth, guarantees, control, and spending. In other words, it becomes the translator between behavior and strategy. So instead of just talking about this in theory, let me show you exactly how this works. I'm going to put the RISA quadrants up on the screen. And as we walk through them, I want you to notice which one feels most like you. Everything in the RISA assessment comes down to two preferences: how you feel about market risk versus guarantees, and how you feel about flexibility versus commitment. So the first quadrant here is probability plus optionality. And the core beliefs of retirees in this quadrant is that markets move and that's normal. I don't need guarantees if the odds are in my favor. And flexibility matters most to me. These retirees are comfortable with volatility and making adjustments. What stresses them out is being locked into something they can't change. So the right strategy for these retirees is total return investing, dynamic withdrawals, high liquidity, and flexible income planning. The second quadrant is safety first plus optionality. And here the core beliefs of retirees are different. It's more like, I want my near-term income safe, but I still want flexibility later, and I don't want everything locked up. What stresses them out most is needing money during a downturn and not having it protected. So the best strategy for these retirees is the bucket strategies: bond letters, segmented income by time horizon. In the third quadrant, we have probability plus commitment, where retirees want income with the long-term growth, and they don't want to worry about running out. And what stresses them out most is being fine now but exposed later in life. And the right strategy for these types of retirees is what we call risk grab strategies, where income riders, deferred income paired with growth, and backloaded income, the right type of strategies that these retirees are happy with. Now, the fourth quadrant is safety first plus commitment. Here, the core beliefs of retirees are: I want income I can't outlive. I don't want surprises. I'm willing to trade flexibility for certainty. So what stresses them out the most is depending too much on markets for everyday income. So here, the right fit strategy for these retirees is pension-style income, lifetime income solutions, and structured paychecks. None of these styles are right or wrong, but building the wrong strategy for the wrong quadrant is exactly how spending worry, panic moves, and constant second-guessing show up in retirement. That's why so many retirees with plenty of money still worry about spending, not because they're underprepared, but because their plan is misaligned with how they naturally think about safety, flexibility, growth, and commitment. And most plans are focused on numbers and products instead of how a retiree actually feels about certainty, flexibility, and market risk, which is why so many people end up saying, this plan works, but it doesn't feel right. And so let me show you a little bit more about what are the strategies that are right for each type of this retiree. As you can see, there are 4 strategies on this picture, starting with the total return, risk grab, income protection, and time segmentation. Now, when we translate these two into plans that you've seen before, some of them will have to deal with the bucket strategies and the withdrawal rates and the guardrails. All of this you have seen before, but perhaps not in a way that's laid out here, where you start to understand that not every strategy is appropriate for every person. And even if what your advisor may describe you may be totally fine, be completely rational and make sense, it may not be the right fit for you. And that's exactly what had happened to Janet. When we ran the risk assessment for Janet, she came out as a risk grab personality. That meant that she still wanted growth, but she also needed long-term income protection built in. And she wanted that protection to be real, not dependent on the next market cycle. That turned out to be a perfect match for the way my company invests with the asset dedication strategy. The asset dedication strategy was designed to match investments to each client's financial plan. So we start with your goals and cash flow needs and your personality and your time horizon, and we create a customized portfolio that seeks to build pension-like predictable cash flows, and then growth that will supplement income later in retirement. So in simple terms, different dollars get different jobs. So before, every market move felt personal to Janet because all of her money rose and fell together. After the change, her income had its own structure, her growth had its own purpose, and she could finally see what was safe to spend with confidence. So the next time the markets dropped, there was no panic call. She kept living her life, not because market was predictable, but because her plan finally was, and she felt confident in her plan. What Janet and Tom showed us is this: they weren't being reckless. They weren't being emotional. They were both being internally consistent with how they were wired. And what was missing was the translator between behavior and strategy. Once that translation was finally in place, their plans stopped fighting them and started supporting them. And that's why this matters so much. Because when your plan finally matches how you think about money, you stop worrying about spending and finally achieve the peace of mind that was missing. If any part of what Janet or Tom felt familiar to you, this is exactly what the RISA profile is designed to clarify. I've secured a free link to the RISA profile specifically for my audience. You can go through the assessment and view your results and understand what type of retirement strategy actually fits you. And once you've done that, you'll also have the option to book a call with me so we can walk through your results together and talk about what, if anything, should change in your current plan. It only takes a few minutes to complete, but the clarity can change your entire retirement experience. You'll find the link right below this video in the description. I'll see you in the next video.